What's up everyone? In this video I want to go through all the features for my parameter utilities package for Houdini and how can you easily install it. Since Houdini 21.0 just released, I figured it's a good time to make sure that everything works in Houdini 20.0 and add some new features and also update some others. I have also added a couple links for supporting my work, since this package is completely free and it stems from my desire to make Houdini more user-friendly for everyone. Before we go through all the features of the package, I want to show the new feature that I have added with Houdini 21.0, and it covers option. Basically, there's going to be a new string parameter option to actually open up directories that you have written inside string parameters. Basically open this path inside File Explorer. So the idea is that, let's say I have this source directory, I am sourcing some geometry, or this is my save directory, and I want to open this directory inside File Explorer. That's very easily inside the param utilities. They're going to be open with File Explorer. Just press it. It's going to basically sort this location and open it up inside as a window. And also works with the files. So let's say I am importing this fence geometry, and in this case it's going to open up basically the same directory. Basically, it's not going to open the file, but it's going to open up a directory where this file is located. And right now I'm going to switch to the other clip which I recorded on different user, basically on the clean install of Houdini, and I'm going to walk you through how to install package and also all the features of it. So hope you enjoyed the video. First of all, we want to go ahead and download it. So to demonstrate it, I have actually created a new profile on my PC, and basically I have only plain install of Houdini 21.0, and I have nothing installed. Nothing else has been installed on this profile. So first of all, let's go ahead and download this package. So you can just go ahead to the code and download zip. Now that we have downloaded, go to the, make sure it's finished, go to the downloads. It's going to be a zip file, make sure that you extract it. And since I do not have an extractor, I'm just going to go ahead and copy it and bring it outside the zip file. And now we have our directory. Basically, we want to make sure that this folder is discovered by Houdini when it launches, and that means we have to set up our JSON file, which is basically a package. Basically, this is how it's going to be discovered, with the JSON file inside for the Houdini to discover it. And the documentation about how to set up Houdini packages is very long, but at the end of the day, only we have to care about this thing. Basically, we have to set up our hpath JSON file, which points to the location of our downloaded package. So the JSON file has to be located in the, go to the documents, go to the Houdini 21.0, and we want to create a new directory called packages. Once you have created your packages directory, you want to create a JSON file. So in my case, I have installed the Sublime text editor, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a JSON file inside here and save it as a JSON file inside the packages folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this text, go to your text editor and paste it inside. And the only thing that you want to go ahead and change is this path. So we want to make it to the path where our package is. So in this case, I have it in the downloads. I go to the properties and the location. You can see. So I can go copy this location, paste it inside here, and also the name of the directory is going to be param utilities. So in this case, you can see it also has appended the master, appended master at the end of it. So that's fine. We can leave it at that. But in real life, you want to make sure that you maybe clean this up. But that's basically it. You can go ahead and save it, and just go ahead and go to the documents, Houdini 20.1, packages, and then just go ahead and master.json. basically save it, and that's pretty much it. Close it down, let's take a look at it. We have packages, we have our JSON file, and if you open it up, it should be looking like that. So you can see there's a bunch of warnings, but that's fine. Houdini can deal with that. And now that we have set up our package, we can just go ahead and open up Houdini, and we should have our package installed. So let's take a look at it. So let's go to geometry and something like put on box node and see if there's a sub menu. Like 60 master tools, you can see all the menus are here, so that means the package has been successfully discovered. Let's start by menu that appears under the right click menu for the nodes. So first one is ability. Let's go to the master tools, add node to the project references. So let's go ahead and try to this. So in this case I have two subnetworks, and let's add these two nodes to the project references. Let's go to the toy. Let's add node to the project references. So we can give it a name. That's fine, we can leave it at that, but you can also name it rubber toy. And let's go to the pig, and also let's add our pig to the project references. Okay, so we have added two nodes to the project references. So what's cool about this, that we can actually now create a merge node that's actually going to reference this node in the other subnetworks. So let's go from the pig network, let's go to the toy subnetwork. Let's say I want to start referencing the pig from that network into this one. So since we have to invoke this menu, sadly you have to invoke it from the any node. So that means you have to go ahead and select, basically do it under the any node that you can, like here. You can see after you have added nodes to the references, there's going to be two new menu items called create reference node and jump to the reference node. So let's go ahead and go to the create reference node, and let's start by, since we're in the toy subnetwork, let's reference our pig head. You can see it's automatically going to create a merge node that actually goes basically creates a relative reference to that pig head in our toy network. And now let's go to our pig network and let's reference our toy. Go again, create a reference, and let's create a rubber toy. You can see now we have create an object merge for the toy in the pig network. And what you can do, there's also another option to jump to the reference node. So let's go to the rubber toy subnetwork, and you can see we have now jumped to the other subnetwork. And if you want to go ahead and remove nodes, you can go ahead and go to the back to the master tools, remove nodes from references. You can see there's going to be these two references. You can go ahead and select all and accept. Now this is basically not going to appear. They are not going to appear anymore. Up next is pasting Unreal Material or Unreal Instance attributes for geometry. So this is very simple, which basically going to take your clipboard, whatever you have copied in the clipboard, and going to create a new attribute create node, and going to set up appropriate attribute for the either for the material, for the Unreal Material or Unreal Instance attribute. So to showcase, I didn't want to create a new Unreal project just to showcase, but you know that if in the content browser, when you click on right click, you can basically get a reference path of it, and it should look basically a path to that asset from the content browser. And for demonstration's sake, I just go ahead and copy this reference path to Unreal Material, and now this string is in the clipboard. And let's create our Unreal Material for the material and paste it inside here. It's going to automatically create an attribute create. You can see that Unreal Material attribute has been automatically set up, and you can see the string has been pasted inside from the clipboard as a string for the Unreal Material, and basically the same thing for the Unreal Instance. So that's very useful way to little bit quicker set up these materials that you want to set for your geometry that you create or instance points. The next one is split by unique attribute string. So this is actually very useful when you import geometry. So in this case, I think I have to put down a pig head. So the pig head has actually basically have different materials for the different parts of this body. So what you can do is go ahead and try to split this geometry into, since the only string material here is the shop material, we can go ahead and split this geometry based on its material applied to it. So go to the tools, split by unique attribute string. You see it's going to automatically show which basically only the string attributes that are valid for splitting. You can see it has found 3 unique values in the shop material path. Accept it. It's basically going to put down the 3 blast nodes, and each one of them is going to be set up already automatically, so that you can get your geometry in 3 parts. Now you can very easily do your operations further. And this also, very similar to this one, is also split by groups. So in the split by groups, basically as it sounds, instead of splitting by the unique string attribute, we can go ahead and split by groups. And you can see we can go ahead and split by primitive, since I know that so there should be let's cancel it. So there's 4 primitive groups. Let's go ahead and say split by groups, primitive groups. You can see it has automatically split by primitive groups, also the blast nodes. Up next is something called attribute from node name. So what we can do is, so this is interesting because sometimes we want to merge 2 geometry pieces together, but we also want to manually apply some identifier for both of them. So what we can do is actually go ahead and set names of these geometries for our nodes that actually hold basically before the merge node. We can call them as let's say pig and a toy. And what we can do is go ahead and use these names of these nodes to set up our attribute. So just go ahead and select both of these, go to the menu and say attribute from node name. Then we have to go ahead and select the name of basically the attribute name, and by default it's going to be, and most common one is going to be name. And then you have to select which class of the primitive you want to set it on. Let's set it on primitives. You see it's going to, for both of these nodes, it's going to create an attribute create node, and it's going to set automatically class, type, and the string and the name based on the options you have selected. And by default, it's going to use this input expression, which basically takes the name of the input node for this attribute create node. So in this case, it's going to be pig and the toy, and then we just go ahead and merge it together. And now we have basically a unique identifier for both of these pieces of geometry. Up next is set as parameter node, so that's going to be a little bit later. Let's go to the last 2 options, which is rename selected nodes. That's very simple. We can basically select 2 nodes and say rename selected nodes. It's basically going to open up with as many rows as you have selected nodes, basically in that order. So in this case, we can go ahead and rename. You can see it has renamed the names of these 2 nodes. And then we have also color selected nodes, so that's kind of more of experimental type of things. So basically the idea is that sometimes I want to basically color something like a blast, delete nodes with something like basically whatever, if something deletes information, I want to maybe color them red, at least for me. And what basically only thing that right now this tool does is basically if you select all of the nodes in the subnetwork and go ahead and say color selected nodes, it's going to basically the nodes that has been selected, so like a blast node and delete and bunch of other nodes that revolves around deletion of information is going to be colored red. So that's kind of more of a concept for the actual implementation of the tool. So, but that's also may be useful for someone. So that's that. And next one is going to be set as parm node. So this is interesting because we can go ahead and basically add add parameters to this node, whichever we have selected as a parameter node. So there can at any point there can only be one parameter node. So in this case, let's go ahead and put down like a null node, and let's set it as a parameter node. Let's go here and set as param node, and this is going to be our control node. So let's go to the pig, and let's say we want to put on transform node, and from the transform node, let's say I want to control the uniform scale of it from my control node. So to go ahead and go to the uniform scale, go to this parameter, go to the parameter utilities. So there's going to be a new menu for the parameters, and then you can go ahead and say add to parameter node as a spare parameter. So since there's a difference between the parameter that is embedded in the definition of the node, which would be your digital asset or any of the Houdini nodes that are actually basically part of the definition of the node. And these pair parameters are basically just a parameter that you can add to any node from the parameter interface, and they can be added and deleted. They are not actually part of the definition of the node. So, and since this is not a digital asset, we have option to only add it as a spare parameter. Just go ahead and add it to the add to parameter. You can see it's going to bring this window, and we can go ahead and change the name of the parameter. Let's call this name, internal name, going to be pig head size, and then the default value 1, minimum value is going to be 0.5, and the maximum, let's say 100, and set it up. And now we should have created a relative reference to this null node. You can see, and the min max values and the default values has been set up appropriately based on the pop-up window. And I have showcased this video in my previous video. If you want to learn more about them, you can watch that video. I'm going to put it in the description below. So yeah, so basically everything here has been basically explored. Now let's go to the menus for the parameters, because there's quite a bit of them. So a couple of very straightforward ones is the remove the parameter. So in this case, let's say I have a spare parameter and I want to delete it. I can go ahead and go to the parameter utilities, remove parameter. So since this is a spare parameter, it's going to remove it. But also the remove parameter option is going to also be on the digital assets. So actually I'm not going to bother it, but basically you can select if you want to remove your spare parameter, or if you are selecting something from the parameter that is actually part of the HTA, you can also remove it from the digital asset, since that is not a spare parameter. So this is basically removal of the parameter, very straightforward. So another thing that is also very useful is the copy parameter name and label. So the name and label is basically the internal parameter name. It's going to be usually with the underscores, and the label is what we see here. So in this case, let's say I want to copy the copy parameter name. Let's copy it, and let me go ahead and go to something like here and paste inside. You can see the internal name of the parameter is actually scale, and you can see the scale when you hover over it. But if you go ahead and select parameter label, paste inside, you can see it's uniform scale. So this is good for especially good is the parameter name, since you want to maybe reference it inside your code, something like a Vex snippet or something like that. It's good to basically get the internal name of the parameters when you want to reference them. Also, the copy help formatted string, I also have talked about it in my previous video. It's basically a string, a couple of lines of string that has been set up for the help for the unique format for the help file for the digital assets. So there's also option to create a spare parameters. So the cool thing that is inside the Wrangle node, that there's option to create basically spare parameters from the whatever you have. Let's say string test equals chs test. So you see, we can go ahead and create our spare parameter here, but this is for the wrangle nodes. That's very useful. But for the something, if you want to go ahead and create a reference parameter inside some other parameters, we have no ability of doing that. So what you can do is actually go ahead and say, let's create a 1 then multiply by ch multiply. So now we have created basically a reference to a channel that doesn't exist, and in the long way we would have to go to the edit parameter interface and add a spare parameter that with the name, with exact name of this one. So but if you have this tool, you can go ahead and say, go here, and let's say you want to go ahead and create a spare parameter float from 0 to 1. It's going to basically find the appropriate, basically going to recognize that this is the parameter reference, and it's going to create a spare parameter. You can see it's just created multiply spare parameter. Now we have spare parameter at the bottom of these. So this is also very useful. And basically these are basically the same thing except with different ranges from 0, 1, 0, 10, negative 1, 1, and 0, 5, negative 5 and 5. So this is for the floats. We can also create an for the integers and also for the string. And then we can also change this spare parameter range. So let's say this range is maybe 0 to 1 is a little bit too little. Let's say go ahead and let's go to the change spare parameter range, and basically let's say 1 to 100. So basically make sure that it's basically with the space is separated two values. Press on it, you can see now our spare parameter range has been changed from 1 to 100. Up next is the ability to open your expressions or your code in different code editors. So the downside of the default setup for Houdini is that it asks for you to select one application as your code editor, and you cannot easily switch between different code editors. So idea is that we can actually append multiple paths where our code editors are located, so that we can actually use multiple code editors and open our expressions or Python code. But to make it work, we have to do a little bit of a setup. So first of all, entire setup explaining how to set it up is actually in the help file, in the package. In the help file, there's the readme, and you can read all about it. But for this demonstration, I just want to go ahead and showcase you how it works, and it should actually work without us actually reloading Houdini. So the idea is that there's a template JSON file that I have provided for you, which basically there's a couple of expressions that you can also paste, which I'm going to cover a little bit later. But basically we have these external editors part of this JSON file where we can put our executables where our code editors are located. And since I'm using a new user, I do not have paths to my code editors that I actually use, but I have this Sublime text code editor. And you can see there's if you go to the Sublime text, and there's going to be an executable, and we basically want to copy the path of this executable inside the JSON file. So let's go to the properties, let's go ahead and copy this text where it is located. So editor name, just go ahead and path the executable, and let's put it to the / text, and then Sublime text, let's copy it, /.exe. So, and let's go ahead and call this Sublime text as a key. And since for now we don't have a second one, that's fine. Let's leave it at that. It's just we're just not going to press on it. Go ahead and save it. And now that we have saved it, we want to go ahead and copy this JSON file instead of its original location from the help directory. Just copy it and paste it inside the one folder up in the root folder of the parameter utilities inside here. And let's try it out. I think it should already go ahead, and you can see already it has recognized this JSON file. You can see we have now ability to use a Sublime text or the other key that I have not edited, basically editor name too. Let's go ahead and press on Sublime text. You can see we can go ahead and press basically write text and save it. You can see we are now writing this code. So this is a basically Houdini implementation. The connection between the Houdini and the texts are actually Houdini. Houdini comes with that. It's just a little bit of a help for this tool is just a little bit of a help for selecting between different executables. So you can basically add as many executables as you want, code editors as you want for opening with editor submenu, because basically as long as you are correctly formatted this part of the JSON file, you can add as many code editors as you want and just dynamically switch between them as you want. And then the last one is this parm expression part of it. So this is basically a couple of expressions that I have already set up for you to start using, but you can basically add any expression that you want that can be actually pasted inside parameters inside the nodes. So let's take a look at it. So the idea is to, now that we have set up our file, user preferences file, and you saw that it came with these, there's going to be a new option for you to paste expression. You can see there's bounding box, centroid, all of these options. These all mirror the key values, basically values of these keys inside the JSON file: bounding box, centroid, geocomponent, attribute values, and all these. And we can basically, on all of these are just expressions from Houdini parameter expressions. So let's say pivot translate, go to the expression, let's say bounding box, and you can see all of these are going to, basically all of these are going to show up from here. As long as it's correctly formatted, you can go ahead and use, let's say, paste this expression. You can see it's going to you can basically, with the appropriate formatting, you can go ahead and see that it's going to show what reference to the geometry you want to use. Since most expressions, first argument for the expression functions is going to be the geometry reference. It usually by default is going to be 0 to reference yourself, basically the input of this node. But sometimes you have multiple inputs for something like a vex code, for vex wrangles, and you can use the different inputs for those. But in this case, you can see I can go ahead and use either I want to append this expression to the already code, whatever code it is written inside here, or I can set it. In this case, I just want to set it. You can see we have set it up as this one. But let's say I want to reference something other than this, the incoming geometry, which is the input, basically the reference 0. So let's add a toy. What we do is go ahead and create a spare input. These are called the spare inputs inside Houdini. Basically the reference nodes that basically doesn't come from the inputs of the node. So it's you, and it's very common thing to do is basically go here and add a spare input and then reference a node. You can see there's going to be this dotted line. That means that we can now reference this geometry with a negative, basically that's going to go in the negative values. So instead of using 0, we can go ahead and start using -1. And now we are referencing the bounding box of spare input geometry, which is the spare input -1. But I found pretty annoying to always add spare inputs and then reference geometry that I want. So probably the most thing that I actually use most often from the entire toolkit is creating automatic spare inputs. And these are done very simple. Basically, we want to select geometry that we want to reference, then we select the geometry that we want to create our spare input to, input for, and go ahead and and if there are two nodes selected, it's going to automatically show add spare input, and just press it. It's going to automatically create a spare input. And now we can go ahead and try our expression pasting again, but in this case we're going to have, let's say, medium. That's fine. But in this case, you can see there's actually going to be an option to select -1 or set, and by referencing -1 or 0. So basically we can now reference the geometry -1, which is basically our spare input, because it basically has gone through all the spare inputs, and it has found that there's a spare input reference to this geometry, so it has added 2 more buttons that we can go ahead and reference our spare input. You can see it's going to automatically set it as -1. And the last tool that I wanted to showcase is renaming basically geometry groups based on the taken screenshots for those groups. So this was made a little while ago, but it still works pretty well, but it's definitely more of an experimental feature. So this is actually going to be under the new pane tab inside Houdini. Go to the main pane tab type, it's going to be mass palm tabs. Go ahead and select it, and you can see there's going to be a new UI for you to work in. The idea is that we have our primitive groups. Let's say I want to rename these groups. In this case, what I have here is I am making sure that I have ability to select geometry. Basically, I have like a polygon selection, and all I have to do is go ahead and make sure that I have visible this pig head, and it is selected. And I have to go ahead and say generate entries. I can see it's going to basically very quickly go through all of the groups. In this case, it's going to use a wireframe ghost mode to basically showcase all of the geometry. You can see in this case, it's going to select the eyes, the face, the neck, and the pig throat as a wireframe mesh. And then we can go ahead and say give them a new names: foo, bar, spam, eggs. Now that we have filled it out, we can go ahead and press rename. You can see it's going to automatically create a group rename node is going to automatically fill these parameters, and we have renamed our groups. And that's going to cover most of the features of the package. I do know that I missed a couple of the features, but I'm going to try to link in the descriptions the features that I missed in this video. And I really hope you go ahead and download this package. It's completely free. Try it out. And also I'm always looking for feedback for the package, and also you can request some future update features. So that's it from me this time. See you next time.